Good afternoon. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for January 20th, 2026. It is 1:30 p.m. Welcome to councillors assembled here today, and welcome to Councillor Roger, who is joining us on our Zoom platform. And welcome to staff in the room and to residents in the gallery. And welcome also to those who will watch later on our YouTube channel. Councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? Seeing nothing, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting as presented. Councillor Hall, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have before us today for approval two sets of minutes. The first from the regular meeting of January 6th, 2026. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing no hands, I would look for a motion that council approve the minutes of the January 6th, 2026 regular council meeting as presented. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, for that motion. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We also have before us the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 13th, 2026. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Again, seeing no hands, I would look for a motion that council approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting as presented. Councillor Melnick, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 4, delegations. We have no scheduled delegations today. This is the point on our agenda, both at regular council meetings and Committee of the Whole meetings, to hear from members of the public with respect to any matter on today's agenda. So I will look to the gallery to see if there is any movement. Anyone wish to come forward to speak to any matter on today's agenda? And except for fake news in the back row, I see no movement. So I will proceed to agenda item 5, correspondence, of which there is none as of Friday when the agenda was printed, and there is nothing made since that requires council review today. So that takes us to agenda item 6, new business, and we commence at item 6.1, Jasper Recovery Coordination Center progress updates. And co-director of JRCC, Director Fark, is with us. Welcome, Director Fark. Floor is yours.
Oh, there's a little bit of voodoo with me. Thank you, Mayor Ireland, members of council. Happy to be before you today to provide you with this week's JRCC update. Diving right in on the issue of debris removal. The highlight here is essentially that there's only one property remaining in town that still requires some debris removal. It is located in the S block. We continue to work constructively with the leaseholder of that property to help facilitate their moving through that process. There are some specific and unique challenges there. But otherwise, that program is coming to a close with only a small number of certificates of completion required still to be issued. On this slide, you can see that the 358 of the total lost properties have obviously already received their COC, with only this small number remaining, including that one at the very end that we are still working with. On interim housing, 353 households representing 674 individuals are currently in the program. An interesting note there is we are seeing an increase once again in the number of applications to interim housing, so new applications to interim housing. And so once again, the demand for interim housing is exceeding the amount of supply that we will have available. We are working with the various applicants to understand their circumstances and to see what assistance we're able to provide. But we are seeing that increase. Some of that increase is attributed to seasonal staff. Others for potentially some businesses who have now located themselves in Jasper and are participating in the rebuilding efforts, and therefore would have staff that potentially meet the need to reside requirement for interim housing. The museum site obviously is fully occupied. Patricia Circle, we are optimistic that we will have occupancy there by the end of this month. So there'll be another 6 families moving into there. And we are still aiming to have the site at the United Church ready for occupancy before the end of February. To date, we've processed over 950 applications for interim housing. And again, as I said, we continue to receive new ones every day. Here's the breakdown of the numbers. So 373 in-house and another 25 households that are in the leasing process. Units available, 78. That speaks to those that have yet to come online. And we still have some space available in the dormitory for the wintertime. That is the majority of that 78 number. Again, there has been some less than total demand for the dormitory units for the wintertime. Although we expect to see some of that fill up also in the next couple of months. On the rebuilding homes and businesses side of things, so on January 8th, the Jasper Field Unit Superintendent approved changes to the town land use policy to support implementation of Jasper's municipality Jasper's housing action plan. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied today. I'm still recovering from bug with flu. So these changes will come into effect on February 9th and have been communicated through Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper's newsletters and social media. The changes do enable more housing options, increase the number of homes that can be built, and do simplify a number of policies. We are currently undertaking a review of the building guide and the rebuild guide and the builder's guide. We aim to have those updated in advance of the 2026 construction season. And the interactive rebuild and site preparation map remains live on the municipality of Jasper's website. Here again, you can see where we're at. So we have 11 houses that have received occupancy, or properties that have received occupancy. Another 67 that are currently in the construction process. 32 further ones that have had their building permit approved, and 70 that are in the application process. We are now down to less than 200 who have not yet applied for any process or building permit. So we are starting to see that number come down a little bit. And we are planning a specific outreach to the people within that 194 to try to better understand what the constraints are that they might be facing and what are their specific challenges, so we can see if there are areas where we can provide assistance. In total, 110 properties have their building permits issued. That represents 244 in-town units. That's 183 replacement units and 61 net new. On the social recovery side of things, we have a new cohort of pathfinders that are being trained. That training started last week. In addition, as of today, we have a new Find a Pathfinder facility that has gone up on the municipality's website. We will be pushing the information around that on our social media and other channels shortly. Essentially, we've trained a significant number of pathfinders, but not everybody in the community will know a pathfinder or know that they know a pathfinder. And so what we want to do is create a system where if people would like to reach out to a pathfinder, they can do so easily. They can register on the site and then a pathfinder will reach out to them directly as just a way to facilitate reaching additional people who might be struggling to access those resources. We're continuing to work with the Red Cross on the data analysis for the recent needs assessment. We expect to have a report out sometime in February. We have launched a new strategy to engage and support displaced residents residing outside of the community. This includes the expansion of the Spiritual Circles program to include an online offering component. The Red Cross was in town last week here in Jasper. They had 3 days and also a day in Hinton, or a half day in Hinton, where they were meeting with residents and continue to provide their support and expertise, specifically on the insurance and the construction side of things, but also their general supports. And we continue to receive an ongoing number of submissions for the Jasper Recovery Challenges Forum, and we continue to respond to those as they come forward. Today, you have a special treat. We have Miss Keely LaBranche. She is the business liaison. Essentially, she leads the economic recovery portfolio. So she's going to come up now and she's going to present to you the deep dive on economic recovery.
Thank you, Director Park. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Keely LaBranche. I'm the business liaison for the municipality of Jasper, working with and presenting on behalf of the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center, giving you a deeper dive into economic recovery progress to date. So I'm going to start by grounding us in what economic recovery means. At its core, this work is about supporting a stable, resilient local economy that reflects Jasper's unique character, one that serves residents, it supports businesses, and continues to attract visitors year-round. At the center of this work are Jasper's business owners. These businesses aren't just providers of goods and services. They are deeply embedded in Jasper's social and economic fabric. It's also important to take a minute to acknowledge the context that businesses are recovering within. Jasper's businesses aren't recovering from just a single event. Many are still contending with the compounding economic shocks of COVID-19, the 2022 Chetamon wildfire, and now the 2024 Jasper wildfire. This prolonged period of disruption has left many businesses physically, financially, and emotionally stretched. Addressing challenges of this scale requires a coordinated response across many organizations. The progress we're about to explore is not the work of the JRCC alone. There are 18 different organizations that sit at the Economic Recovery Working Group table. They help to guide and coordinate this work. We have representation there from the federal, provincial, and municipal government levels. We have many local business support organizations and regional agencies. And although this presentation focuses more on the efforts of the two agencies who make up the JRCC, the municipality and parks, as a means to keep it somewhat manageable in length and to allow those agencies to choose how they report on their efforts, I want to make sure it's very clear that regardless of who is driving what initiative, it's a result of countless people from a variety of organizations collecting data, sharing feedback, offering time and resources that are influencing every single initiative that's being presented today. So if anyone's interested in more details though on the breadth of the partner contributions, I would definitely recommend them to review the JRCC Year 1 Progress Report available online, which highlights those efforts, along with any reporting shared directly by those individual agencies themselves. So in disaster recovery literature in North America, it's estimated that roughly 1 in 4 businesses forced to close due to a disaster will never reopen. With that risk increasing over time as uncertainty, financial strain, and workforce challenges persist. Small, locally owned businesses are typically the most vulnerable. This context matters because in Jasper, our businesses are not only economic drivers, they are central to how our community functions. They support local employment, they sustain families, and provide goods and services residents rely on every day. Many also contribute beyond their commercial role by supporting local events, sports teams, and community organizations. Jasper's business community also functions as an economic engine that reaches far beyond town site. We support jobs, supply chains, and economic activity at regional and national scales too. The business landscape shown on the slide reflects that importance. While tourism represents a significant share of the economy, Jasper's business base has a distinct diversity worth protecting. Its resilience and uniqueness comes from a mix of ownership types, tourism subsectors, and other sectors such as construction and professional services, shown here. And protecting this business base is therefore not only an economic objective, it's essential. With that context, the focus over the past year has been on preventing permanent closures wherever possible, particularly among the most vulnerable businesses, through our coordinated actions. So on this slide, we're talking about how we kept the economy moving. I want to emphasize this is a strong royal we being used here because again, we're so many contributors to this work. That makes the slide still look this busy, even though I really tried to just hone in on a few examples. So in the immediate aftermath of the wildfire, the priority was clear. It was assess the impact, establish communication lines with each other and businesses, and prevent permanent business closures wherever possible. Keeping the economy moving didn't mean that businesses were stable or comfortable either. It really just meant putting measures in place to avoid collapse and preserve the foundation for recovery. Many of these actions began before the JRCC was established, but once it was established, a formal multi-partner response emerged through the previously mentioned Economic Recovery Working Group, providing a forum where organizations regularly share info, they identify gaps, they raise concerns, and align economic actions. Local business support organizations, many of whom were experiencing the impacts of the wildfire themselves, moved really quickly. Community Futures supported the Red Cross Business Recovery Center set up in Hinton. They offered co-working space, conducted mass wellness checks, and ran a recovery needs survey less than a month after the fire. That data helped align agencies across the country with their support. They also partnered with Prairies Can to deliver $2.17 million in non-repayable grants to help business cover essential costs like rent, wage, and reopening expenses. And overall, this program alone supported the retention of more than 1,300 jobs. The Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce filled the essential role for advocacy and two-way communication. They established a centralized information channel through their newsletter to ensure that businesses receive timely updates. They opened their recovery support and advocacy work to the entire business community, not just their member base, and created opportunities for direct engagement between business and recovery partners to help ensure that the work that's happening was happening with the business community, not just to them. The Jasper Employment and Education Center supported both employers and employees navigating a rapidly changing environment. This includes hosting learning sessions and providing one-on-one support to employees and workers, including assisting more than 800 temporary foreign workers securing or extended permits to ensure their wildfire-related needs were surveyed, documented, and addressed. Additional measures include staff training programs, such as Parks Canada's Talking About Fire initiative with visitors. They provided land rent relief, delayed permit fee increases, and the waiving of national park business license fees for local businesses. Business recovery lunch and learn sessions were delivered to help businesses pivot. We launched a business recovery bulletin to ensure JRCC updates that directly impact business owners can get directly to those businesses quickly. And there's many temporary space use options established as well, including a pop-up business village and an interim industrial park, which I'll speak more about shortly. Parks pave the policy lane for these to happen, alongside providing additional land, such as that used for interim housing, laydown space, and reserve camping options for business staff, also supporting workforce stability. Parks also work to ensure recovery efforts were connected to community and cultural recovery. Indigenous partners participated as cultural monitors in archaeological investigations and discussions related to recovery sites. Indigenous businesses were supported through the creation of an online business directory, and contractors with strong Indigenous partnership participation were engaged in recovery work. And these are just some of the key examples of what organizations have contributed, and by no means an exhaustive list. Taken together, these actions are helping better stabilize the local economy during a highly uncertain period. And these help create the conditions for the progress you'll see reflected in the next slide. So on the note of interim spaces, we've got the Commerce Continuity Initiative overview here. So this project, as many of you may be familiar with, was designed to help stabilize wildfire impacted small and medium-sized businesses. It was meant to preserve jobs, help them maintain customer connections, and provide affordable interim commercial space while keeping spending local and reducing rebuild related costs. The CCI is delivered through 3 complementary streams, each designed to meet different business needs. So we have the pop-up village, which supports businesses that require a customer-facing presence, and to date has supported 9 small businesses, including the 2 rotating artists. It's also helped retain 73 jobs, ranging from seasonal to full-time positions. The interim industrial park serves businesses that lost space in the industrial area and are service or operation focused, and is currently supporting 14 essential businesses. In town, laydown sites support both local and external rebuild companies by providing space to store materials within Jasper rather than transporting them out of town, helping to reduce transportation costs that would otherwise be passed on to the local clients. So these sites are currently also helping beyond the day-to-day operations. The CCI has also helped activate the community through events like the Fall Festival. And in total, over $161,000 have been redirected into the local economy through the use of local supplies and services to support these initiatives. Given that this is the first year of the program and that many of those major costs, such as power infrastructure and CCANs, can't be sourced locally, unfortunately, it's a number we're very proud of. So overall, the CCI has provided businesses most vulnerable with the time and space to adapt, continue serving the community, and contribute to Jasper's broader economic recovery. We know that economic recovery depends not only on stabilizing the businesses, but also on restoring activity, and particularly that looks like visitation in Jasper. Parks Canada has played a key role in this space. Through rapid infrastructure assessment, hazard tree removal, and phased reopenings, access across the park has returned at an impressive rate. These actions have been foundational to restoring visitor confidence and supporting business activity. Just as important, though, as how reopening was communicated. Visitor messaging was closely coordinated with tourism partners to align access, business readiness, and visitor expectations. An active member of the Economic Recovery Working Group and key leader in this space is Tourism Jasper, who continues to deliver its core mandate on promoting and building Jasper through significant annual investment. In parallel with the regular workload, though, they are also working extra hard this past year. They are running additional advertising campaigns across regional, national, and international markets. They conducted sales missions, they worked with international media, and continue to deliver major events such as Jasper in January, which is currently underway. Alongside this work, they also developed a recovery-focused messaging toolkit to support partner agencies to help ensure that communications with visitors is consistent, respectful, and aligned. Economic recovery does not happen in isolation, not even within its own working group. So progress across all JRCC working groups and their many members directly supports business recovery, and the careful coordination has ensured that an economic recovery lens has been applied throughout the recovery initiatives at the JRCC. So over the past year, we know that 676 individuals were housed or offered lease or in the middle of working through the leasing process, with additional units coming online this year. And employment function was a leading criterion, eligibility criterion there. Summer camping and winter seasonal dorm programs were introduced to help address staffing constraints. However, I do want to note that we are very aware that interim housing does not fully meet current demand, and workforce housing remains a critical bottleneck affecting business operations, which is why we continue to explore how to support housing during this time. We know that there's a lot of rebuild related work that plays a direct role in the recovery of our economy. So the efforts of the debris removal and construction coordination working groups support the timely clearing and rebuilding of homes and commercial properties. Social recovery is another key piece. Access to mental health resources, social supports, and programs that help people navigate disruption continue to work to contribute to workforce stability and community resilience, which in turn is supporting business continuity. There's also a lot of work being done in the spaces between working groups, such as putting together reporting material and adapting policies that don't fit in any traditional working group's mandate. Our urban design and standard teams initiatives, such as the accessory unit dwelling program and the Cannot Below Market Housing Project, aim to address pre-existing staff housing shortages and support sustainable economic recovery. So I just wanted to take this chance to highlight that each working group is contributing a critical path of the overall recovery structure that either directly or indirectly supports our economic recovery progress. A clear example of how this interconnected work goes is this here. I know you saw a broader version of this previously on Director Fark's presentation earlier about how many properties, both commercial and residential, are moving through the rebuild process. We've narrowed it down just to focus a little bit on the commercial rebuild. So at this time, there are currently 41 commercial properties at various stages of the rebuild process. And it's important to note that permits are issued at the property level. So what that means is that a single site can have a ripple effect across multiple businesses, as there can be multiple businesses within a single property. So we're really looking forward to seeing this develop over the next year and moving people through the phases from, the prepare and design stage, getting them to the occupancy and open stage. This slide here is showing us some further tangible indicators that help us understand how recovery is progressing and whether the efforts underway are translating into real economic activity. Thanks to Tourism Jasper and Parks Canada, we have some reliable data on screen to help monitor that progress. So starting with accommodation, that's that first graph there. And that shows your monthly room nights sold over the past 6 months. And that's compared to across the last 3 years. So an important context indicator, I know it's probably a little tiny on your screens, is that between, let me just see here. There we go. Between July through September, Jasper's peak season, we actually reached effectively peak occupancy, which is around 95% in Jasper during those times. That remaining gap that you see between the yellow bar of 2023 and the blue bar of 2025 actually is that's a result of rooms offline as a result of not being yet rebuilt. So there's about a 20% reduction in accommodation in town at the moment related to that. So as we move into the shoulder season, those offline rooms have less influence on overall occupancy because demand doesn't quite reach that same threshold. So that's why we see that gap narrowing. But that gives us confidence that attraction efforts and visitor messaging is working. The next graph that shows Parks Canada gate visitation shows a similar pattern. We saw summer visitation in 2025 on par with, and in some cases even higher than previous years. In the fall, visitation did decline to just below pre-fire levels though. So taken together, these indicators point to early but meaningful momentum. Businesses are reopening or adapting operations, visitation is returning, and activity levels are improving compared to earlier phases of recovery. But at the same time, it's really important to interpret this data carefully. Pre-fire Jasper was on a trajectory to see growth in some areas with higher spending anticipated and efforts ongoing to strengthen the shoulder season's visitation. So while approaching pre-fire levels represents progress, there's also an unrealized growth that has been lost and isn't visible in these charts. And we can appreciate that the 2023 levels was not the bar business recovery, was not the bar that businesses recovering from the previously mentioned economic shocks we're hoping to be reaching in 2026. Another thing to note is that recovery is not uniform. We haven't seen this visitation rebound uniformly trickle down to everyone. So many retails and experience-based tourism organizations continue to report reduced earnings. Past was what is expected, which is about that 20% drop as it kind of parallels the 20% reduction in rooms availability. So others remain constrained by their factors like rebuild timelines, staffing availability, and ongoing financial pressures. So that's why these indicators are used alongside ongoing engagement with businesses and partners to better understand where recovery is gaining momentum and where additional support is still going to be needed. So to conclude, I just want to cover a little bit of where that leaves us for 2026. While significant progress has been made, this is going to be a critical year for sustaining and building on recovery efforts. The focus will continue to be on stabilizing businesses, monitoring their health, and addressing emerging risks. Businesses remain at very different stages in the recovery journey, and we will need to remain flexible and responsive to those needs. Continued engagement in businesses will help identify where additional support, coordination, or intervention may be needed. So in parallel to better understanding how the broader business community is doing, the Chamber of Commerce, Community Futures, Employment Center, and Tourism Jasper are leading an economic impact and opportunities assessment. Questions relevant to JRCC priorities have also been integrated into that work to reduce survey fatigue, and the results will help us inform next steps across the working group. Additionally, we've already started a business outreach project where we're calling approximately the 100 businesses that lost commercial space in the wildfire, as well as any additional businesses that maybe didn't lose commercial space but have yet to reopen. This will help us better understand where they are at their recovery journey and what the outlook is for the future for them. Another focus area is improving systems and processes that affect businesses. So this includes a planned modernizing of the municipal business license system to better reflect community needs. It'll improve our data consistency and strengthen our ability to monitor the local business landscape while improving preparedness for future disruptions as well. Partnership will continue to be foundational. Close collaboration between the municipality and Parks Canada, business organizations, Indigenous partners, and regional, provincial, and federal partners remains essential to long-term economic resilience. We'll continue to be open to feedback from the business community and look for more chances to directly engage with them. Overall, the focus in 2026 moves further away from emergency response and towards sustaining stability and confidence. While many businesses still face a long recovery ahead, coordinated, targeted efforts will continue to support this resilience, maintain momentum, and ensure Jasper's economy continues to build back. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Director Park, for your general overview of JRCC progress and recovery generally. And thank you in particular, Mr. Branch, for your deep dive into economic recovery. And thank you in particular for so clearly expressing that although you are reporting on behalf of the JRCC, there are multiple parties involved, and some of whom are in the room, and you gave them credit, and I would like to thank you for that. So we have representation here from Tourism Jasper and the Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce, for example. There is at least one business owner here, but we mentioned also the Community Futures West Yellowhead and Jasper Education and Employment Center, the Red Cross, and there are various others. And I really thank you for highlighting the fact that it is a partnership throughout, and it's not just the JRCC. So thank you for that, and I will turn it to questions from councillors. Councillor Burchett.
For you too, Mr. LeBlanc. Thank you so much for a very in-depth report. It really shines a lot of light on questions that I've had personally about the economic situation with our small and medium-sized businesses. Clearly, we have a current of support across all of the organizations, Chamber of Commerce, Red Cross, Friends of Jasper, etc., Tourism Jasper. I'm just wondering, is there anything? I mean, I appreciate this might be a broad question, but we have had presentations where members of the business community feel like they're not being heard. Their issues seem to be put behind a lot of concerns that, be it residential or standard issues per se. Is there any element of our exercise in this body that you think would be beneficial? And yeah, just to see if there's something that we should be focusing on. I know that may be out of your purview, but there's a lot of support systems in place, and clearly our business community is fundamental to our well-being, both economically and socially. We want them all to come back as well as they can. So anyway, yeah, that would be my question.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Frechette. I see Director Ford seems to want to start with answering this question. I can add anything if it's missed.
Thank you, Councillor Fichette. So as we've discussed with council a number of times, everybody's recovery journey is different. And there are certainly a number of businesses that are experiencing recovery and even accessing the supports in different ways than others are. So that is a legitimate challenge that we need to address. In terms of the role of council, your role is to be available to your constituents, to hear their concerns. And then if there are specific things that you think are being missed or initiatives that you think would be beneficial, provide that direction to administration to follow that up. So if in the conversations you've had, if there are specific examples of supports that businesses are requesting that you are not aware that we are providing, we would certainly welcome that feedback and would be happy to take that on.
Thank you, Director Park. And just one more question, if I may. As large business owners or rather property owners are redeveloping, fixing their properties, rebuilding their properties, in some cases there's a half a dozen or more business entities in each structure. Now, are the applicants that or the people who are occupying these businesses or running these businesses in these multiplex of business buildings, are they the majority of people who are struggling, if you will, or is it larger than that? In other words, we have a lot of small food outlets, we have a lot of small businesses that were struggling in the first place. And moreover, how much, if that's true, how much are the uptick in costs of retail space playing into this?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Frechette. That's a fantastic question, and it's actually something that we're looking to get more information out of this this economic impact and opportunities assessment that has some questions out to business owners related to these exact topics, because we have definitely heard that from business owners who have been displaced, that the rates that they're going back to are not comparable to the rates they were seeing pre-fire levels. And we're also hearing from businesses who maybe their space wasn't physically impacted by the fire, but that the renewal is coming up and they're seeing large increases in their rates. So we're hoping to have a better understanding after we collect some data and understand how widespread this issue might be to come back and report on. So sorry to delay a little bit on that. But if I may just take an opportunity to finish to add something to your first question about council's responsibility in the space and places to play a role. I did want to highlight, which I forgot to say earlier, is that we are here in Jasper hosting economic development training for elected officials coming up here in February. So I strongly encourage any councillors who are available. There'll be councillors, elected officials from all over the region attending that here to go and learn more about the tools available and the options available.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I personally plan on attending that. Yes, I appreciate the work that your group is doing. It's a big task, and clearly the role of council is we're here to support and do what we can for all of our entities here. And clearly, the business is very fundamentally important to us. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Other questions from councillors? Councillor Constant.
Hi guys, kind of following up on Danny's question, but if we get questions from the business community that are beyond our knowledge, or more pointed questions, is there a contact that the business owner could get a hold of to ask them, as opposed to like the run around between asking us and then us trying to bring the questions to you guys?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Are you, no, I'm good, okay, we do, my recommendation would be to first and foremost send them to our information line, just to make sure that we connect them with the right person. If, for example, the question might be related to staff housing, that might be a different person than it would be to participating in the pop-up village. So I don't know, do you have that email memorized?
I don't, but it's available on the website, information is there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ireland, and thank you both for your reports. If I could go back to Director Fark's report first. I really appreciate the Find a Pathfinder program. I think in the last few weeks at meetings, I've heard, as we're a year and a half in and the dust is settling, and there's, you know, a group of people, residents that maybe didn't lose their homes or have found a long-term sustainable accommodation that are feeling a bit disconnected. And I think it's a really important group, and, you know, maybe not feeling that they deserve support or feel guilty about asking for support. So I'm happy to have that happen. I have a question about regional transit. When you look on the website, it's all grouped into one. Is there a way to break that down with Hinton routes, Margaret Meadow routes? And then further to that, I'm wondering if there's a way to break it down to residents who are displaced, and then also just residents of Hinton or Jasper using that service between Hinton and Jasper.
Mayor Ireland, I can maybe speak a little bit to that. So we can go back with the transit team and ask for sort of breakdown. For council's information, next committee of the whole, next week, I think, we're going to have a transit update, sort of 2025 update, where we maybe speak to a little bit more of those details. With the recovery service in particular, since that service is funded by the GOA as a specific recovery initiative, we really look at it as one whole service. We don't really differentiate between the Margaret Meadows and Hinton. We may have information about the number of people getting on the bus at either of those locations, which is useful and would kind of get to the question you're asking. And we have provided everyone living in interim housing or in Hinton or Fulton Mountain with a recovery pass, which allows them free access to the system. So we could total up those number of passes. That's information that exists that we could work with GRCC to get. And we could look at stop information about how many people are getting on at what stops. I don't know that we'll have that at hand next week, but it's something that we can pick up.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I dropped my son off on Sunday to go visit his girlfriend in Hinton, and I saw 5 people get off the bus. I just was really curious if they were residents coming to work or Hintonites coming to stay in Jasper. So I appreciate that. And then to Ms. LeBranch, I'm just curious, so the Economic Recovery Working Group, how often do you meet? What kind of groups are on there? What kind of topics get discussed? I'm just curious about that.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. So the answer to that question, we'll start with how often they meet. Originally, closer to the onset, it was weekly. I think even sometimes twice a week, depending on the needs. Fortunately, we've kind of moved into a space where the mandates of each organization, their work is more clear. So we meet monthly at this point to share pieces, but we'll often hold we'll call like a separate working group meetings if we need to workshop a specific idea. So the main function of that group at the moment is serving as an information sharing and coordination kind of piece. So similar to a little bit of what was mentioned is it's making sure that, you know, we're not competing for resources. We're making sure that the work and the projects that people are proposing are in line with what others are hearing from the business community and the needs. So that would probably, I think that'd be a good summation. I don't know if I missed any of the pieces there.
I'm also just curious, like what kind of groups are part of it? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So with those, we have representation. So we have members from the federal government, provincial, and the municipal. We've also got the members that were mentioned, like Tourism Jasper, Community Futures, the Jasper Employment Center, I'm sure the chamber, as well as we'll have members from Travel Alberta and from different, we even have actually members from different agencies within the different levels of government. So for example, with the federal government, we have Prairies Canada, the provincial government, we have different kind of ministries represented there. So it is quite a large breadth. We also have the president of the Hotel and Lodging Association who sits on that board, as well as the head of the Retail Association as to other local members.
I'm curious, are there any, like in our recovery advisory committee, we've got 2 members of the public. Are there any just members of the public business owners that are part of the group?
That's a great question. So the 2 that I mentioned last there, the Association and the Retail Association are also business owners. So that gives those connections. That way, that being said, if it was something that the business community was looking to have represented that way, as opposed to the other agencies, would be open to it.
Thank you.
Councillor Melvin.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and to you. I'd like to thank you both for the presentation on this particular part of the Jasper Recovery Coordination Team. I'm going to refer back in our agenda to page 24, and it's the Commercial Continuity Initiative. I'd like to just get a bit of an update as we go into 2026. I recognize that the pop-up village was being developed last summer, and we currently have the 7 businesses and 2 local artists. Is the pop-up village now currently maxed out, or will there be more? What will be the eventual maximum number of businesses in the pop-up village?
Thank you, Councillor Melnick, for the question. So we don't necessarily have a maximum number of businesses. When we came and requested the decision for this project to move forward with council and take available parking spots, I think we did in that presentation set a maximum. I want to be careful, I don't fully remember, something 30 to 40 stalls. So there's definitely room for more businesses to participate if they're eligible and if it suits their recovery kind of journey. If there was more that were interested than available in space, we could always explore coming back and asking for expansions. But at this point in time, it doesn't seem necessary. We expect to be reducing numbers in the following years as more businesses are moving back into their rebuilt spaces.
And thank you for that. I was just interested for this summer, if there's businesses who might not yet be ready, what process they would go through to be able to see if there would be available space. The interim industrial park with the 14 businesses, similar type of question about, I know again, acquiring the appropriate facilities for the interim businesses and also servicing the site. Will there be more than the 14 that are there? And is there a demand for more in that for that particular area?
Yes, so in the interim industrial park, we are at max capacity in terms of number of CCANs, both workshops and storage units being rented out. We do actually have a bit of a waiting list. From my recollection, some of that waiting list though sits with some of those businesses requiring more space. I'm not quite sure how many unique new businesses to what's already in there are waiting. So anyways, there has been demand. There is a little bit more, though so far it has mostly met the demand because we did a survey in advance of the project to kind of understand that before we went through the procurement process and writing our grant.
Thank you for that. I recognize that, you know, the interim industrial park is not a tourism-based portion of our community, but it's critical in our rebuild. And the fact that we were able to max out that space and we have a waiting list, I think, just indicated what demand there was within the community. And then my third question related to our rebuild is the laydown sites, and impressed to see that we have the 10 laydown sites. And we're at a high level, relatively high level of construction right now. And this summer we'll be gearing up for even a higher level. Are there opportunities, and I don't know which of you would be best to answer, for additional laydown sites or sites that maybe are seasonal that aren't impacted by the snow being on the ground and so on? Because I do foresee come March, we're going to be into a very, very hectic time, both for visitation and rebuilding.
So thank you for the question, Councillor Melnick. In regards to laydown space, we do retain some capacity at the woodlot. So there are a few vacant spots left there that additional companies could take advantage of. We're also in the process where we're seeing the highest demand is actually in town for the SPSUs. Right, so that's the use of public space within the municipal footprint. And there we're having to do some balancing between reconstruction demand for space, but also ensuring resident access and egress, emergency services, the ability to access other parts of the town. So there is a bit of a balancing act that is going on there. At this time, however, we are fairly confident we have enough capacity to facilitate and accommodate the demand. So between the laydown space in different locations in the S block and the woodlot and the SBSU program that we have in place, we are doing everything we can to optimize the space available for facilitation.
Thank you very much to both of you for answering those questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much for letting me get one more in. Further to Councillor Melick's questioning around the interim industrial park, out of the 14 businesses, how many businesses are the kind that are open 9 to 5 and you walk in and do your thing and walk out, or are they mostly all laydowns or kind of storage, I guess?
Thank you, Councillor Hall, for the question. So it's definitely a mix. The majority are more internal operations focused. So maybe they do most of their interaction with customers online or via phone, and just need either storage space or just a workshop. There are a few in there that are customer facing. So what comes to mind right now is the vet clinic, the bottle depot, and the Adriano laundry services there as well. So those are the main ones that are more customer facing.
I just had a thought, if there's a wait list there and there's space in the pop-up village, I wonder if there's any kind of overlap.
Appreciate the question. Yeah. The difficulty with the pop-up village is that we were able to procure cans for that in advance, and it is quite expensive for a business to do that. So we would definitely be willing to work with anyone. However, generally the cost of acquiring a usable can and bringing it to that space is quite is a high barrier for it.
Deputy Mayor Waxer.
Almost there. I thank you both, Director Fark and Kaylee, for the comprehensive particular report. I wanted to just comment that it's heartening to hear you speak of the challenges that we hear from residents and acknowledge those as challenges. And it's also been heartening over time to see that there's been solutions developed in response to what has been heard. So I just wanted to express my appreciation. Thank you.
In the absence of other hands, I appreciate very deep dive that you've undertaken. I'm going to invite you to perhaps dive even a little bit deeper. I could start with page 14 of your report. It's the Jasper's business landscape and impact, that pie graph. Firstly, can you tell me what metric you used to get those proportions in the pie graph? Is it just the number of business licenses issued, or is it related to employees or income contribution to the overall economic activity of community? What is the metric that produces this pie graph?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, for the question. It is specifically the business licenses. When we collect the sign-in or the registration information, we typically will allot them according to the North American industry, what C stands for. But it's a specific kind of coding system that's centralized across North America that we use.
I appreciate that. And I asked the question because I am concerned that somebody from outside the community who does not understand the nature of our tourism economic base might interpret this to assume that the two large components on the right side of the pie represent tourism and the rest do not. And yet it is all a tourism brush. And I'm not sure that that is readily apparent to somebody who doesn't understand. But I thank you for just clarifying that it's just by business license and it has nothing to do, for example, with economic impact. There is some information about economic impact, and that's to the right of the slide. And I had some questions about that. So there's an indication, and this from a report apparently from Tourism Jasper from August 5th of 2024. So 2 weeks after the event, which is remarkable in itself that they were able to pull this together, indicating that spending generated an estimated $450 million in GDP. Is that at GDP measured at the provincial level?
I apologize, Mayor Ireland, I'm actually not quite sure. I'd have to go back to the report to check.
And similarly, and again, no need for it today, but it's supported 5,100 jobs. Those can't all be in Jasper. So our economic activity supports jobs throughout the province and maybe more broadly. And there's an indication that it produced $69 million in taxes, which I'm sure it did. And I would be interested to know how that is dispersed among various orders of government. Because there wasn't $69 million coming into municipal bank accounts, I'm sure.
Yes, if I may add to that, Mayor Island, is I think the intention of the report, and I do want to add clarity that it is just the 2 bullets with the little footnote there that are from that report. The rest of the information is not on the slide, but I believe the point of this was to kind of highlight the importance of Jasper both to the provincial and the national economy. So there is a chance that it is conjoined there.
Sure. Thank you for that. On the next page, and I acknowledge and thank you for indicating that when you say we, you meant more broadly we. That is the community and the business sector in particular, keeping the economy moving. In the middle line on the left, there is that darker green box, supported various survey and research reports to monitor economic recovery indicators. And so one of the indicators that shows up in later graphs is the return of visitation, but that is not the only indicator. And you indicated that economic recovery in particular has not been uniform. It is quite different depending on where you're at and what we lost perhaps. What are the other recovery indicators that are referenced in that slide?
Thank you very much for that question. So to expand a little bit on the other indicators that we've been looking at, things in that nature would include like the campground stats, the reports by even anecdotal by business owners of their spendings and what they're seeing. We supported the Economic Developers of Alberta earlier in 2025 to come forward, and they were one of those agencies who did a report. And so they went and they did interviews with businesses and put together some information of the experiences they were having. I'm trying to think if there's other kind of hard data indicators that come to mind. No, Director Park, please. I think those cover a lot of those, and we're hoping to see more out of this impact assessment as it relates to kind of spending impact and other kind of general economic indicators municipal wide.
So it will, in some, it will be the visitation numbers, the visitor spend, employment numbers. So some of the standard economic metrics. We expect to see these, some of this information come up more clearly in the report that the partners are working on together. So that's the one that Ben Brunen, who had met with council, is leading. So we'll have a higher degree of granularity that will come from there. But they're pretty much those standard indicators.
I appreciate that, and participation numbers are important, but they're not the whole story. And visitor spend is important, but it's not the whole story. And so I'm just looking forward to the information that you might be able to accumulate that might allow us then to take a stab at making recovery more uniform So if we can understand where the spend is going and equally where it's not going, how we might make adjustments. You know, the expression, a rising tide lifts all boats. Not necessarily. There are some boats that are not lifting, at least not the same rate. And so it would be interesting if we can get access to some data that would allow us to disperse the uniformity of the recovery a little more broadly across the community.
So, thank you, Mayor Allen, for the comment. I think it's a very accurate reflection. The challenge is that uniformity may not be achievable. So there are factors and trends that are outside of Jasper's control that impact. So for example, across the tourism sector, we're seeing changes in terms of how visitors are spending and what they're prioritizing their spending on. Those are things that we are not necessarily able to adjust. We have certainly seen that those businesses that require the sort of the walk-up traffic have certainly been the hardest impacted as a result of the fire. So although occupancy, as you say, in the hotels is quite high and the campgrounds are full, that's not necessarily translating into retail or the adventure tourism folks seeing that same uptake in business. So when we talk about business resilience, you know, there are certain programs that we can implement and have been implementing that are designed to help support those businesses. But in some ways, they may have to start to revisit the business models that they were operating under to recognize that there are both Jasper specific, but also broader trends that are changing. And so we are working with the various partners to outline what that is and see what supports to be provided.
Thank you for that. And my last question, and Ms. Lorette, you mentioned that there are some other indicators, including Parks Canada counting statistics. And I wonder whether at some point a graph similar to the one that is before us with respect to hotel occupancy might be made available with respect to campground occupancy so that we can start to assess the important role that campers make to our economic recovery and our well-being as a community, because it seems to be a missing component in this report, but I can understand that it's not as readily available perhaps, but that indication of a number of camping sites that are offline for various reasons and how that relates to what has been the historical experience could be really useful information as we continue to plan out our recovery.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Yeah, so we don't have a specific graph to address that, but from Parks Canada, we do know that 100% of all backcountry campsites in the park are open. We're available in 2025 and will be again in 2026. And it's at this point in time about 75% of the front country campsites that remain online. There are some that are going to require rather substantive rehabilitation and rebuild. And the timeline for that remaining 25% of front country campsites to come back online remains a bit uncertain at this time. We will certainly bring that information back to council as soon as we have it.
Thank you very much. I will look one last time to see if there are additional questions for you. We have taken a lot of your time and we thank you for it. Obviously, it's a matter of considerable interest at the council table, but also throughout the community. So thank you very much for that deep dive and for the more general update as you always give us, Director Park. And with that, I think that there are no further questions, so I would look for a motion to have council receive the report for information. I saw Councillor Melnick's hand first. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Again, thank you both very much. That takes us to agenda item 6.2, Director's Report, the Director of Operations and Utilities. Director Donaldson. Floor is yours.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So as you'll see here, we've done a reporting period for this particular report of July 2025 through to January 2026. Our operations and utilities department has focused on advancing capital projects, maintaining essential services through peak winter conditions, and stabilizing staffing across our service areas. With major projects, phase one of the activity center parking lot was substantially completed prior to snowfall, with a second smaller phase that's going to be occurring in the 2026 construction season. The request for standing offer, or RFSO, if you ever hear me refer to that acronym, for municipal engineering services, that RFP, or request for proposal there, included and is set to be awarded to 3 proponents. We had 12 applications through APC. Additionally, the water meter replacement project and the lagoon equalization project RFPs have concluded and are in the process of award. So there was a lot of work there in the last quarter there of the year when it came to RFPs and APC. Interior renovations at the operations building are nearing completion, with the remaining work focused on deficiencies and backordered cabinetry. The activity center renovation project is in its final warranty closeout, so it's been a year post-close, and so we are working on just post-completion deficiency lists to ensure that all of those items have been identified and completed. We have begun work to scope and charter a transportation master plan in coordination with other departments. We are planning on aligning it with the upcoming town plan, as well as the streetscape study, working closely with UDS. Additionally, we have begun an internal work on water, sewer, cemetery bylaws for update. And additionally, we will have the memorial bench program before you shortly here for review. When it comes to staffing over this period, we had a fair amount of recruitment and onboarding activities. All winter and recovery positions in operation services were successfully filled. We had a new arena/ground worker position that was filled. So this actually replaced 2 6-month term positions, one of which belonged to the operations department, the other of which actually belonged within community development. So we created 1 permanent full-time position out of 2 6-month term positions, just providing more stability. We have a heavy equipment operator 1 position that we did post. It does remain vacant, and it became apparent as to why we needed that position in December and January. So we are reposting that. That should be up again, but we have been backfilling from within our grounds and our solid waste team. So we do have a few individuals with class 1 and or 3 licenses that were able to step up during that time period to assist our roads team with snow removal. Additionally, in that time period of July to December/January here, we had lead hand positions become available for both our grounds and our solid waste teams, which were both successfully filled with internal applicants. In our maintenance, fleet and asset team there, we remain to have a heavy duty technician position that remains vacant. We did fill it briefly for a period of about 2 months. However, it does remain vacant at this point in time. So our team is currently supported by an automotive mechanic and a grade 11 RAP automotive mechanic student. We have a custodian position that was filled to support the operations compound, bylaw building, emergency services building. Previously, that work was supported by a contractor, and we have brought that internally into a position. Of note too, the bylaw building was not previously under contract, so it was actually up to the staff members there on that team to undertake. And lastly, we did successfully hire for a utilities construction coordinator position. That position began on January 2nd of this year, and that is Red Cross funded. Moving into this year, we are continuing with recruitment efforts for positions that remain vacant and already starting to plan for many of our summer term positions. When it comes to service trends, I'm sure it's no surprise that snow removal was our primary focus through December and into early January, with approximately 25,000 cubic meters of snow that was removed. One item that I would like to highlight is that we entered into an agreement with a local contractor who agreed to push the snow at the snow dump for us in exchange for managing the soil, a soil stockpile at that site. So just excess materials had to come out of certain sites, and there really wasn't anywhere to put it. So we entered into an agreement with them at no cost to the municipality. And so that actually resulted in a large cost savings for us to have that contractor push all the snow with the amounts that we brought there. We have seen an increase of approximately 5 kilometers of sidewalks that our grounds team is managing this winter, just with our agreements there. And cemetery services. So I feel like we haven't updated you guys on the cemetery in a bit, but we have recorded approximately 20 burials, along with 30 inquiries between the July to December 2025 period. So that is an increase, a fairly notable increase. There is a completion of 460 work orders over the past 3 months. So I just want to preface with that the current software or maintenance software will only go back 3 months when it comes to data. So that's as far back as I can go forward. In that period, we did have 464 requests. So that's a 99% completion rate for that period. We still have 82 that remain open, 8 on hold and 2 in progress. So prior to that period, we did have a fair amount that were still open, but we are keeping up quite well. And during that period, we also had 1 staff member off on a leave. So we are back to just about full staffing now. So we anticipate closing back on there. We continue to have power disruptions. So these are occurring almost weekly, and they continue to impact equipment and staffing deployment. It happened again last night. So we are working with ATCO to try and figure out what it is that's occurring. Our utilities team has experienced a higher workload related to coordination, placement, and project delivery with all the servicing requests that they've been receiving. Additionally, our production pump 1 is down. So you'll remember we came to request emergency funding for production pump 2 last year. So now production pump 1 is down. We do have a replacement on order, and it does have an estimated 8-week lead time. Additionally, we have the primary clarifier failure at the wastewater treatment plant. So that is under review, and we have asked Aquaterra, who is the service provider there, they're going to work with us, and we are going to conduct a root cause analysis to really get to the root cause of what caused the failure. Briefly with transit, we recorded 59,909 riders in 2025 across school, local, and regional routes. As was previously mentioned, we do have our annual transit report that will be presented next week that will dive into that. And I did mark down the questions that came up here today there as well, so we'll do our best to answer those at the same time. For communications and engagement, our asset management committee has met monthly and is progressing in its work. Asset management software evaluation is nearing completion. We also worked with the community development team during this period on a custodial survey, which was completed by relevant supervisors and managers, along with data analysis and a final report. And results of that will be shared internally next week. The survey aims to identify areas of improvement and understanding best practices within the organization. An additional item that I do want to state is that we are actively engaging with utility companies for the upcoming construction season to understand planned work across the town site and vice versa. They really want to get an understanding of what it is that we have planned, of what Parks has planned, so that we can identify potential conflicts or opportunities for collaboration and to ensure that we are minimizing disruption to residents and visitors. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you for that report, Director Donaldson. Councillor Roger.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Director Donaldson. There's 3 matters that have come to my attention. The first one is regarding the change at the end of Calling Crescent beside the activity center where there used to be a stop sign, and now there's not. And the situation that's been, I've noticed it, but it's been also brought to my direction, is that because of the angle parking, if you have a van parked in front of you and you're trying to back out, you're pretty much blind and you have to go creep out very, very slowly. And the stop sign was very useful because it meant the cars weren't coming as fast. And I'm just wondering why that was done and if that's been brought to your attention before now.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Roger. Yes, it was actually an item that we discussed at our traffic advisory committee. Unfortunately, just due to the way that that intersection is designed at present, a lot of vehicles weren't actually stopping at the stop sign. And so the decision was made to remove the stop sign and install a crosswalk. We felt as a committee that it was safer for individuals to anticipate that people were not going to stop than to have a stop sign in place and it not be used fully. With that said, we have already engaged an engineer in that particular intersection to look at how we could make it a proper intersection in which we could put proper signage, which may be a stop sign, which may be something else, but they are looking at options for that particular stop or that particular intersection on how we could make it an official intersection because it doesn't meet certain criteria right now in which to erect a stop sign.
Okay, so you're looking into it. That's good. The second question, it's a similar one, is in front of the rink, the swimming pool, at night. I've seen it, and it's been brought to my attention as well that a lot of hockey players drag their bags across, and when there's cars parked on the church side, you can't see them until they're right in front of you. And I think it's either taking away the parking on the other side or having better lighting or something would be better. So I just bring that to your attention. I don't know if that's been brought to your attention before or not.
No, thank you for bringing that to my attention. We do have the TAC committee meeting tomorrow, so we can discuss that then. So I appreciate that.
Okay. The third question I've got is to transit, and I know that we're having a report next week, but I've spoken with people from Marmot and Sundog, other people, and an option that I don't know if you've considered, but I'd like you to think about it before next week is that the town parking be reduced in the winter because nobody seems to be using it much, and somehow we could divert our energies towards Marmot. And they, of course, would pay and subsidize us. And I don't know if that's been brought to your attention, but if it hasn't, if you could maybe think about that during this week before the report.
Are you able to elaborate on that, Councillor Roger, a little bit more? Like when you say reduce?
Well, I've noticed myself, for example, that very little use is made of the buses that go up to Pyramid Lake. And very little use seems to be made of the buses that go around town in the winter. And although in the summer it's probably very useful, in the winter it might be something that's wasteful, to have empty buses traveling around all the time. And I know that Marmot Basin would be willing to subsidize buses going up to Marmot. And so perhaps if we're eventually going to have our own buses, that consideration be made to have it seasonal so that we run around town and run up to Pyramid and places in the summer, but we don't in the winter. And instead we use the buses for Marmot Basin where they would pay us for it. I personally took the bus to Pyramid just to see what it was like, and there was nobody on the bus except for us and I think two other people. And the bus coming down had nobody on it. And I understand that in November there was only 28 people using the bus for the whole month. So it's not very environmental as well as inefficient, I would say.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And I do believe, I'm not sure if we've talked about it previously directly or if it's come up here before, but when it comes to Marmot and subsidization, there is a procedure that we do need to follow that's listed within, I believe it's our service standards and policy or policy, and that they would need to approach us if they wanted to have us provide a certain service. To date, I'm not aware of being approached to provide that service. So if you are aware of something, perhaps urge them to reach out. That's definitely a discussion we'd be willing to have.
Okay, I will.
And we can discuss that further next week.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Director Donaldson? Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ireland, and thank you, Dr. Donaldson, for your report. I've heard some feedback around the activity center parking lot. This is, I'm assuming we're referring to the one near the administration offices, and just a lack of or less accessible parking for seniors. And I'm just wondering if that has been brought to your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Hall. Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. I know when we opened the parking lot, we had asked what signage would like to be placed there. We were provided a response of let's just see how it goes for the winter. Since then, we've actually had discussions and we have ordered appropriate signage for that area. So I can double check to see if we've received it yet. But I'm not sure where that is at, so I can look into that. But yes, we are aware that did come up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And further to that, same resident spoke to me last week about maybe a potential for an accessible spot in front of Nesters. In any of that 15-minute zone, it's all just 15-minute, and I think the accessible spot is across the street. And there's, if there is an option for one closer, I'm not sure if that's also been brought up. But the same resident that had the concerns about the parking lot also had would like to see something a little bit closer to the front door of the grocery store.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And again, we can definitely discuss that tomorrow at our traffic advisory committee. I'll bring that forward there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions, Councillor Burchett?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Director Donaldson. Just a question of curiosity about the water terrifier number 2, I think it is. I'm just curious if that work has begun, as they enjoyed the tour of it last week. I'm just wondering if that project has begun, or is it still waiting for an engineer to peruse it?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Burchett there. So you're referring to the primary clarifier at the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, the one that's the paddles, I think they were called, have disintegrated.
Yes, so that one has gone through to our engineers, and we are conducting that root cause analysis. As I mentioned, it has not been fixed. It's going to be quite a substantial amount of work to get that up and running. With that said, with the request for standing offer that we just put through, we are utilizing that as a mechanism in which to actually speed up the process. So it enables us to, in that situation, engage engineering directly without having to go to RFP. That's one of the benefits of having that set up. So that will allow us to streamline that. But to date, no, we are working towards getting that back up and running.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was an enlightening tour, and I was just curious what that exercise was going to look like. Thank you so much.
Deputy Mayor Waxer.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, and through you to Director Donaldson. I just wondered if you could articulate what would be included in the phase 2 of the activity centre parking lot upgrade.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Waxer. I was hoping someone would ask that. It's a project I'm quite passionate about. It's a great improvement there to that area. The great part about doing certain projects, especially a phased approach, is we can kind of identify maybe we didn't get something just quite right. So there's a few changes we're going to make in terms of widening a couple spots where we want to be able to actually load vehicles back, right, to be able to access those doors. So we are going to widen one spot in particular. We're providing more bike parking. So now we haven't put in any of the bike parking to date with all the events that occur in that area. One of the items that we noted the most was that there always seems to be a plethora of bicycles everywhere and never enough parking. So you'll see that on the, oh boy, here, it's going to be the northeast corner, right when you come in. So that fencing will move slightly to accommodate that, some wayfinding signage as well there. And you will see all of the landscaping start to go in, but that will be the large majority of work there.
Thank you. And then just my other comment is, strangely, in the last couple of weeks, I've heard a number of people referencing taking the transit system out to Marmot Meadows to connect with people who live there. And I realized we thought about bringing people into town, but I think it's had some benefits in terms of creating the space at Monmouth Meadows as a home where friends who live in the community are traveling out to meet with them there. So I felt that was a very positive comment that I've heard now from three different people at different times.
Councillor Melvin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Director Donaldson. You asked me a question about the Activity Center Parking Lot East project, and I want to make sure I have the right parking lot. We, in last fall, talked about adding EV charging to a parking lot. Is that part of that east parking lot, or am I thinking of the wrong parking lot?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Melnick. That would be the other parking lot, so the one on the other side of the activity center. To my knowledge, the most recent activity on the EV charger is that they have identified where they would like to place it. It did have to change slightly from the initial proposal. This came up this morning. I'm just trying to recall. We had a meeting with ACO this morning, so this came up. But yes, they've identified the location, and our energy manager on the urban design and standards team is working with community development to get that going.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councillor Constant.
First off, I'd like to thank whoever came up with that angle parking idea. I think it's ingenious, and I want to buy him a coffee. Although sometimes like longer vehicles that don't pull up perhaps could create a little problem. And I'd also like to show my support for the flashing lights and the crosswalk. I find that a lot more useful for myself, like myself as well as many of you probably did blow through that stop sign and stuff. And I think with the flashing lights, you just really notice it. So, I mean, I know we're all different and have different thoughts, but I'm an advocate of that. One question that has been brought to my attention, and I kind of noticed it, on the new parking area between the doors into the activity center and the auditorium doors, there's that water runoff that's a bit of a problem. I'm assuming or thinking that you probably have plans to rectify that. And once again, it's a member of the public that asked, so perhaps I could get back to them. And I guess as far as a question that was brought up about the seniors not having parking, it was brought to my attention by one of my buddies that had two young kids that they thought the congestion in that parking lot that you redone was a lot better now. Like it used to be a little hectic walking kids through there. I don't know if that was one of the reasons why you wanted to change it, but for them to tell me that they were a lot more comfortable going through it, like it was an aha moment for me. It's like, okay, and I get it, because nothing's more important than that. And then my last concern, and it's pretty vague, but as far as the cemetery plots, a concerned citizen had a problem locating someone, and I'm not really up on it, but perhaps I can find out later if like the logbook or whatever is up to date. Like I didn't even know there was such thing, but I guess there is.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Councillor Concrete there. So I'll start with what I think is the first comment there, the angle parking, you have our operations service manager, Mr. Duke, there to thank for the angle parking. That was his idea. Now, when it comes to the runoff, we did meet with engineers last week regarding that. So we have devised a plan to fix that, and it's going to involve, yes, some improvements and some specially fabricated covers. So further down, you'll see that we did have a grate. We're going to create something much like that. It just was not possible at the time.
Yeah.
But yes, we do plan on making that change in phase 2 there. So thank you for bringing that up. In terms of congestion, it was really interesting when we look at how we designed that project. So our community development team, our urban design and standards team, and our operations team kind of came together. And one of the primary focuses is how are people going to use this space, right? How is it currently used and how do we want to see it used? And a big part of that was how are people moving throughout that space? And yeah, it was really interesting, and I agree with you there. A big part of that was considering the people that utilize that, either go through to the schools or come from school, access that area. And that's why you see the design that you do. It was to make the space more humane, as I think our urban design and standards director would say. So I'm quoting her there. And yeah, just make it more usable. So I appreciate those comments. In terms of the cemetery there, I have noted that as well too. We do have a spot when you go to the cemetery itself, you can look it up right there on the plot. What I've seen in other communities and what I would like to do on GIS is they actually have electronic maps where you can go and look up, you know, whether it be a loved one or you're looking for someone. They have that all electronically on a website, so you can actually scope out the location of where you want to go or where you intend to go prior to even being on site there. So that is something we would like to work towards. And I think now with our administrative assistant who is in place, who does have that focus on the cemetery. So she was hired in, I think, July of last year. That is on the task list. So
Thank you.
I have two questions, Director Donaldson. First, can you give some better context to the 25,000 cubic meters of snow that was removed from Jasper streets out to the snow dump? I think that a bathtub holds about a cubic meter of water. How many trucks would that have taken? How many truckloads to drive from the streets of Jasper out to the snow dump to deliver that much snow? Do you know?
thank you, Mayor Ireland. Not offhand, no, but I can definitely find out for you. I've got to do a little bit of math. But it was a lot of trucks. And I think it was really neat. I know on the day that we did our tour, I don't know if any of you all noticed it, but when we're kind of driving back from the water treatment plant going up to the water reservoir, it felt like there was a bit of an army out there of trucks, and just we had contractors working for us during that time period. We had our own internal staff doing that. When I look at social media of other municipalities of perhaps, you know, stuff that they may improve upon when it comes to snow removal, one of the things that I think our team did really well was actually removing the snow, not just pushing it to the side, but actually going through the effort of removing the snow as soon as reasonably practicable. So you have to reach certain levels of accumulation in order to actually get the blower to work and all of that. So as soon as we hit those depths, they pushed that snow and got out there and did that work. So I know initially, just because of the holiday season, it was a bit delayed. But in the grand scheme of things, I think they did a phenomenal job in moving that amount of snow. It's much more than we've moved. Like, I think we're at 3 to 4 times what we did last year. But
Well, thank you. And I agree with all of those comments. It was a spectacular job. And as I was out enjoying all that snow, skiing around Whistler Campground, I noticed the number of trucks on the Skytram road taking snow to the snow dump, and it was steady. So credit to your crew for the amount of snow you you were able to move in that short period of time. My other question relates to the power blips, and you've indicated that you're having some discussions with ATCO. Is it anticipated that it is an ATCO issue? And if that is the case, do we know whether it is impacting local residents and businesses in the same manner that it's impacting the municipality? And by that, I mean, you've indicated that it's hard on equipment and it's hard on team members to be dealing with that. And I assume that if we are suffering those effects, others are as well. So it is beyond just an operational concern to get this addressed. So just wondering what else you know about that you can tell us too.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know much. We did raise the question actually after I left the meeting with ATCO today. So our utilities manager remained, and I did ask him to follow up on those power blips. I would assume that it is impacting other businesses because every single time it occurs, we do have to send our maintenance team out to reset a whole bunch of things manually. So that's why when we say there's like staff, when it comes to staffing deployment, it's an issue. And a lot of times if it is just that brief blip, we don't necessarily know right off the hop that there has been a power outage until we actually have reports of things not functioning well. So if we're aware that there's a power outage, yes, we deploy people immediately to go reset their systems. We have that down to an hour, it feels like. But today, for instance, we received a call from the pool and certain things were not working, and we came to the conclusion there must have been one and we were not aware of it. So following that, we did send messaging to our utilities manager to ask about that. So I can't allude to more because I'm not aware, but we are following up on that.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions of Director Donaldson? I would look then for a motion to receive her report for information. Deputy Mayor Waxer, thank you for that. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.3. Before we proceed, we've been at it for an hour and a half. I see some indication that some councillors might benefit from a brief recess. It is about 7 minutes after 3, so I'll give us 8 minutes and we can reconvene at 3:15. Until then, I will declare a recess. My apologies, I was delayed. It is now 3:17 and I will direct us back into open session. Recess having terminated, we are at agenda item 6.3. Supplementary assessment of improvements and the supplementary tax bylaws, both of which received second reading and went to parks for certification, and we have certification back in each case. So I would look for motions first with respect to third reading of bylaw number 273, being the supplementary assessment of improvements bylaw, and then subsequently a motion with respect to third reading of bylaw number 274. Was there a councillor prepared to make a motion? Councillor, or pardon me, Deputy Mayor Waxer, you are prepared for a motion?
I have council read for the third time bylaw number 273, being a bylaw of the specialized municipality of Jasper in the province of Alberta to authorize the supplementary assessment of improvements for the taxation year 2026.
Thank you for that motion. Deputy Mayor Waxer, is there any debate? I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And then similarly with respect to 274, and just before I call for the motion, I appreciate the work of staff to eliminate one word in that bylaw, but it is important to some of us that that word be eliminated, and I thank you for your diligence. So again, I would look to councillors for a motion to a councillor. Councillor Melnick,
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make the motion that council read for the third time bylaw 274, being a bylaw of the specialized municipality in the province of Jasper, the province of Alberta, to authorize the imposition of supplementary tax for the taxation year 2026.
thank you for that motion. Councillor Melnick. Look for debates. No hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. And we also have before us for third reading, the utility fees levy and collection bylaw 2026. Not on the agenda is evidence of certification from Parks Canada, but I understand from CAO, given that that was received earlier today, so that it would be in order for us to have third reading of the bylaw at this time.
Mayor, maybe just for the record, I'll confirm that administration's received that certification from Parks. We just didn't have it on Friday when we assembled the PDF version of the agenda for publishing. But we have received it since that time, and I certainly thank them for getting that across, but I can confirm to council we've received that certification.
All right, and with that, I would look for a motion for third reading of bylaw number 275. Deputy Mayor Waxer.
That council read for the third time bylaw number 275, being a bylaw of the specialized municipality of Jasper in the province of Alberta, to provide for the levying and collection of fees for the provision of water, sewer, solid waste, and recycling services in 2026.
Thank you for that motion, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Look quickly for debate, and I see no hands, so I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.5, board and committee appointments. We have a recommendation from Human Resources Committee, and Deputy Mayor Waxer, that is the committee you chair, so I can let you present the matter if you would.
The HR committee met to discuss the appointments and determined that Madison Shella would be the appropriate choice to ensure there's diversity among the board members. And although I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the others who submitted their names, all of the applications were excellent candidates to fill that role.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Waxer, and you then have a motion.
That council appoint Madison Kinshella to the Communities in Bloom Committee for a term commencing January 1, 2026 and concluding December 31st, 2027.
Thank you for that motion. I will look to councillors for comment or debate. I see no hands. I will call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 7, notices of motion, of which none were brought forward at the time of printing the agenda or at the time of reviewing the agenda at the start of the meeting. So I will assume there are none, which takes us to councillor reports. And I will look to councillors for reports of meetings and opportunities in the last 2 weeks since we last met. Are there any councillor reports? Councillor Melvin.
Thank you. had the opportunity to attend the community conversations for seniors on the 14th of January.
Thank you for that. Other reports? Deputy Mayor Waxer?
I had the opportunity to attend or accepted the gracious invitation from the Evergreens Foundation to attend their postponed Christmas dinner. It was an amazing meal and a wonderful opportunity to connect with many residents who've known for many years.
Councillor Constantine?
Councillor Hall and myself, attended our adult conversations. Forget the date exactly, but.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Last week on the 12th, most of council met in the morning for an offsite levy bylaw workshop. And I now see that they are advertising on our social media a couple of open houses. It was very informative. Later that afternoon, Councillor Wax and I attended a recovery advisory committee meeting. And again, just learned that everybody's at different stages in recovery and all these supports are still super important. That evening, we had a library board meeting and we welcomed our new members, Matthew, Cairns, and Allison Rudge. It was a lot of fun, lots of laughs, cheese and crackers as well. And then on Friday the 16th, Councillor Waxer and I, along with CAO Gibbon, met with some senior leaders from TELUS and got an update of what was happening in the community. And it was actually super informative. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Roger, did I see your hand earlier?
No, I was just scratching.
All right. Thank you. I think that the only matter I have to report is an attendance at a very brief West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Board meeting Friday of last week, Friday of last week. Councillor Melnick and I attended that. All right, that concludes then agenda item 8. We move to agenda item 9, upcoming events. Jasper in January is now underway. Numerous events ongoing, so just keep up to date. The street party, I think, was January 30th.
Yep.
NETMA back on tomorrow night at Eagle Dave's. Buzz Fest, the gallery, the JAG event is Friday of this week. And 3 of us are scheduled to attend the 2026 Tourism Advocacy Summit in Edmonton on February 8th to 10th. Are there any other matters coming up regarding council that could be brought to the attention of all of us at this time? Councillor Hall.
Thank you. Yeah, just want to highlight again that offsite levy bylaw open house that are coming up on Thursday, January 29th between 4 and 7, and then the next day, Friday the 30th between 9 and noon. And those are both at the Employment Center upstairs.
Thank you for that. If there are no other upcoming events to be noted, then I think we are at agenda item 10, adjournment. Councillor Hall, a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? There are none opposed. Thank you for your time joining us on Zoom, Councillor Roger. Perhaps we'll see you next time in person.
You're welcome. I thought there was another meeting for the Jasper
that's
Housing
true.
Corporation.
No, the Jasper Municipal Leasehold Asset Society.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Has a meeting, yes, and so we will leave this meeting, and we have a separate link for Councillor Roger, so you can sign out and then sign back in on a link that Ms. Acorn would have provided to you, I think.
Yes.
All right, otherwise we are adjourned. And thank you all. Thanks to those who stuck it out in the gallery today. And those who will watch later on our YouTube platform. Thank you all.